Welcome back. Republicans holding on to control of the House, reaching 218 seats, giving them full control of Washington now. Mike Johnson winning the Republican nomination to remain Speaker. He will face a full House vote in the new year. President-elect Trump meeting with House Republicans yesterday. He endorsed Johnson for Speaker, and he congratulated the Republicans on their victory. Watch.
Isn't it nice to win? It's nice to win. But the House did very well. I guess you'll be 5 up. Are you looking at 5 or 4? 5 or 4, right? Doesn't matter. We get used to 1 for a little while. We won the majority by 7.1 million. We won, which is great, because Republicans aren't supposed to be winning the majority. And we won it every way, all 7 swing states, by a lot.
Elon Musk also meeting with House Republicans yesterday. He was greeted with a standing ovation when he entered the room. Look at this. Joining us now is Georgia Congressman Andrew Clyde, a member of the House Appropriations Committee. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Were you in that room? Can you tell us a little about what went down yesterday when you saw President-elect Trump and Elon Musk?
Well, good morning, Maria. Yes, it was incredible yesterday morning to have the president come join us and have Elon there as well. I got to meet him for the first time. I think he will make an excellent Duke.
Do you? Duke. So do you think he will be able to identify places to cut to the tune of $2 trillion?
Oh, I think he will do a phenomenal job of that, and we're going to help him. We're going to help him make government so small it's not worth corrupting.
Good for you. President-elect Trump nominating Matt Gaetz, meanwhile, for Attorney General. Speaker Johnson said that Gaetz has already resigned from Congress, allowing his district to quickly hold a special election to fill that seat as early as January 3rd, which is when the new Congress is sworn in. Your reaction?
Oh, I think that's a great pick. I mean, all of President Trump's picks so far have shown that he is committed to changing the way this government functions. He's committed to taking the mandate that the American people gave him and actually transforming this government, making it more efficient, taking away the weaponization of the Department of Justice. Matt Gaetz is the right guy for Attorney General. He is a true constitutionalist.
Well, do you think he's going to get confirmed?
I think he will. I mean, if senators can vote for Merrick Garland, I mean, a guy who absolutely decimated the Constitution, I think they can certainly vote for Matt Gaetz as someone who will absolutely uphold the Constitution.
And what do you want his priorities to be in the AG's office?
First, I think they need to tear down the weaponization of how the Department of Justice has come against the American people and truly become a balanced agency that is not political and restore the faith of the American people.
But how do you do that? I mean, how do you get the people to have trust once again in the Department of Justice? I mean, what is it going to take?
I think there's going to be a lot of people lose their jobs in the Department of Justice. There needs to be a clean sweep of the top echelon of the Department of Justice, the FBI, the ATF. I mean, all of these agencies that have come out against the American people and have done so in a way that is contrary to the Constitution.
Well, President-elect Trump also nominating combat veteran Pete Hegseth to serve as the Secretary of Defense. Hegseth served tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's a Princeton graduate. He earned a master's degree from Harvard. But Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren is already dismissing this pick. She writes this on X: a Fox and Friend weekend co-host is not qualified to be the Secretary of Defense, she writes. I lead the Senate Military Personnel Panel. All 3 of my brothers served in uniform. I respect every one of our service members. Donald Trump's pick will make us less safe and must be rejected. The Associated Press writes Trump's decision to nominate Hegseth was met with bewilderment and worry among many in Washington. Some are concerned he does not have the experience to run the department. Congressman, you are a Navy combat veteran. All of these comments don't even make a mention of Pete's experience in the military and the 2 tours he did in Afghanistan and Iraq. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I think it's very disingenuous of them to say that, because you're right. This gentleman, Pete Hegseth, 2 Bronze Stars, I mean, combat infantry badge. This is a warfighter right here. He fully understands combat. He fully understands our military. And for these people in the Senate to say that just shows their ignorance. I mean, Pete Hegseth is will be an incredible agent of change. And Donald Trump made a phenomenal pick for defense secretary.
Oh, I mean, you know, Caroline, I love the way all these people come out and start talking about his time as the co-host on Fox and Friends and completely ignore his military experience.
Right.
Pete Hegseth was, you know, did dual tours in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Over 20 years of military service, Maria, and his veterans advocacy organization, I think, gives him a lot of credibility to lead this department. The Pentagon needs a good manager, and just because the elite defense apparatus is not a fan, I think that's actually a green flag, because the guy who's leading the Pentagon should be closer to the enlisted ranks. I think he or she should be more removed from the lobbyists of the defense industry and closer to what the soldiers on the ground actually feel. And I say this as the daughter of a Vietnam veteran who went to West Point. And last thing I'll say is his commitment to de-woke the military academies is so important, because they've abandoned their mission, which is military excellence, and for America to be the premier armed forces on the world stage.
Well, this is a really important point. And Congressman, I want you to take that on for a second, because when you look at today's military, it is weaker than it was over the last decade. Look at the Navy, for example, and how when you compare it to China's Navy, they actually have a larger Navy than the United States. So that in and of itself worries people, that we're not investing the resources that we need to in the U.S. military while our adversaries are on the march.
Well, I think Pete Hegseth will bring back merit-based promotion. He will bring back training that makes us the greatest war fighters in the world. Again, you know, this focus on DEI and critical race theory, et cetera, it needs to be completely destroyed in the military. That is absolutely decimating our recruiting, and it's just bad, and Pete Hegseth is the right man. He is the person who will take this on.
Look, Trump's meeting with House Republicans yesterday, he spoke about his plans for the border crisis as well. And sources telling Fox that Trump got a big cheer from the group after vowing to carry out the largest deportation operation in history, Congressman. I mean, this is no easy feat. What do you make of what the response was to that yesterday, and how do you want to see President Trump handle this deportation that he's planning?
I'm going to help him do it, because that's the right path right there. And, you know, the appointment of Mr. Homan to head this up is, again, the right pick to make this happen. President Trump is just making, you know, home run after home run after home run here.
All right, Congressman, it's great to get your take on all of this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Andrew Clyde in D.C.